Inside development. All right, inside development. This is one of my favorite things to do in life, is just sort of ruminate on the insights that I gather in my telephone from time to time. The first one is called I Am Your Mirror. This is about judgment and people. Well, when people are acting badly around you, it's almost like a barometer of the way that you act, your own behavior, because they're only reacting to your treatment of them. And the way to change people's bad behavior isn't to explain to them what to do. It's actually to change your own behavior. And if you change
Yes.
something about yourself, they won't feel compelled to mistreat you. So take a look at yourself, change the way you're dealing with them, and they will change. So everybody is your mirror. I'm your mirror and you're mine. What do you think about that?
I think that's very true. I've like previously mentioned the cause and consequence cycle, right? Your surroundings are affected by you, and you are affected by your surroundings. So there's got to be some sort of a change in this whole big cycle that leads to like a specific outcome of, whatever you're feeling from your surroundings. So I think in order to change how people see you or how people act around you, you have to be able to change your presence
But
first.
isn't it very difficult for someone your age to kind of to understand that wait a second, judgments are auto-referential? Aren't young people characterized by judging everybody, pointing their fingers, evading blame, putting it on you? And I learned as an adult, not as a kid, but I learned as an adult that when I judge someone, it's actually a reflection of myself. It's I wouldn't consider it a judgment. I wouldn't look down on you if I wasn't guilty of the exact same thing and recognize
Yes.
that it's a problem, but I deny it in myself and I'm hypercritical about it in you. And so that's what a judgment is. And if I didn't have this problem myself, I wouldn't see it as a judgment in you. I would actually feel bad for you because you're imbalanced and you're bringing on negative attention to yourself. But since I'm guilty of it, I hate this quality and I revel in pointing it out in you.
The problem, with young people these days is that, we don't, just like you said, we don't see our own problems, but our like the problems magnify one it's implemented onto other people, and you're like, oh, okay, this person is really bad because has this, has that, but we really have the same thing, but we don't accept the fact that we have it, and we don't accept the fact that people are criticizing us for it. That's kind of the main problem in teenagers nowadays.
I think that's actually one of the thing that, a lot of young people are characterized by being a bit arrogant, haughty, right? Fraught with hubris. And that kind of mitigates. It gets less and less as you get older. And I think one of the reasons is because as you get older, you realize, wait a second, I'm just, I am guilty of that too. And the more you say, why am I being so critical? Okay, maybe I should shut up, lay low a little bit. But young people are kind of so eager to call each other out and present themselves as the standard bearer for everybody. I don't know. I don't know.
These
I
young
think
people, when they get a specific state, get to a specific stage of education, they're like, okay, I own this world now. I know everything that's what's going on. I can like kind of live by myself, and I'm independent, and I'm in control of everything, which is really not the case. And there's so long of a path to go before you actually know what you're living for and know, what you kind of need in this world. Yeah.
well, actually, it leads to this next insight of mine. I'm reading a book
Mhm.
currently called Watership Down. Here, let me minimize this a little bit. Have you heard of Watership Down?
Have not.
It's a book about rabbits, and I started reading it
Okay.
because it's a classic. Well, it's called a children's book, but the old time children's book are actually really well written, and it's not like kiddie book. It's an amazing classic literature. It's called Watership Down. It's about rabbits, and I started reading it because it's the year of the rabbit, right?
So yes, it is.
And so I thought, okay, everybody's talking about rabbits. Let me read this book. And then I came across chapter 22, the first paragraph, and I want to read it out loud. Rabbits are like human beings in many ways. One of these is certainly their staunch ability to withstand disaster and to let the stream of their life carry them along. Past reachers of terror and loss, they have a certain quality which it would not be accurate to describe as callousness or indifference. So human beings have this ability or this way of getting past horrific incidents in their life, like the sudden and tragic loss of somebody we talked about earlier. It's not callous that we are able to move on with our life. It's instinctual. It's this
Yes.
this this kind of instinctual feeling or knowledge that we're in a stream, like we said before, we have to keep moving. And life is for the living. Life is for moving forwards. It's not about looking backwards. So what do you think about
Hmm.
that?
I think I would agree because, well, like you said, humans have this biological factor in which kind of like gets us past stuff, even though sometimes we actually don't react upon, very, very, what is that word again? Very tragical experiences, or traumatizing experiences. Our body kind of just tells us, okay, it's time to get over it. Okay, we should not react so much to that. And I think it's a great thing because, then we have an opportunity. It can basically gives us an opportunity to say, okay, let's move on. Let's not be stumbled
Yeah,
over this
it
bad
it,
thing
it
that happened
actually
to us.
reminds me of when people talk about doctors and their bedside manner, and a lot of people
Hmm.
criticize doctors because they're so indifferent and they seem so callous and they seem so removed from this suffering person, and they're able to talk about it in just this logical way and move on to the next person. But if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because a doctor can't be emotional with every patient. They can't break down and have some
Yes.
crisis. They have to remain professionally distanced so they can do their job and think logically and make the best decisions. Right? They don't want to be fraught with emotions when they're deciding on what to do with your health. And
Yeah,
so it's almost like this instinct of ours, this ability to move on is so self-serving, right? It would be
it is.
terrible
It is.
if we actually became paralyzed with fear or sadness every time we faced a trauma.
Hmm. And yeah, I think that it helps us in many different ways, and that it actually like helps us find meaning even after that we've like lost something, which kind of like falls back into the conversation that we had earlier, is that this instinctive action actually just tells us that there's still things that we should live for and that there's still things that are going to happen that's good to us in our lives and that we shouldn't be like stuck on a specific thing, which is
The,
good
the,
because
the,
it actually.
the only
Mhm.
sticky area with this concept that I can think of is we actually, it's like the way our culture deals with the elderly. Back to the elderly points that
Mm,
they're like my uncle, right? He's in a very disaffected way. His entire family has abandoned him almost. There's one niece that hangs around, or granddaughter, but it's like people in his life have callously moved on with their life and left him kind of in the dust. And he's not even gone. You know what I mean? And
yes,
so
yes.
I wonder if it's like if this instinct of ours is almost allows us to kind of forget people and preserve our own happiness and our own state of mind, because to open my life to him is to invite this curmudgeonly disagreeable presence into my life. It doesn't do anything for me, only for him. You know what I mean?
Yes, but life is that way sometimes, there are people that you think is important and that you want to bring happiness to, even though that really doesn't directly impact you in a very beneficial way. But I think that this concept that we're talking about here, it implements onto everyone, hopefully. Um, and in most senses, being selfish and caring about yourself more than you care about other people is a great factor. However, there are people like you, right, that surpass this kind of, oh, I'm kind of
But
just going to
this
move
this
on with my
idea
life.
that life is for the living, like people say that life is for the living. Well,
Hmm.
my uncle is not living. He's got like one foot in the grave. And so this instinct, it kicks in when you see a person like that and you go, okay, well, I'm gonna have to leave you in the dust because I'm living, I'm moving forward.
Yes,
And so that's
yes,
almost like a fateful decision that he made, that he's giving up on living because it allows other people just to let their instincts carry them forward. And that's what happened. And so I don't really judge anybody who's made any decision vis-a-vis him. And even me, I find it sometimes hard to go see him. But I kind of override my own judgment because I just don't want to be that. I want him to have somebody that cares about him. But I do agree that life is for the living, and I feel bad for people who've got Alzheimer's. They call it the long goodbye, dementia, because they
Yes.
actually have a pre-death death. These people are no longer the
Yes.
person they were, but they're still here. And so the old person is gone, dead, but the new person is still there before they're
Yeah.
gone. So they're going to have another death. And so there's this pre-death death because life is for the living. And I feel bad for
Yes.
those
I
situations and those
do.
families and those people.
Yes, I do as well. Ah,